Hi, today I'd like to talk about the early railways of 1840s. Now, the picture here is of an early 1840s locomotive, and you can see at the back it's an open air wagon for third class passengers. Now, the first railways started in England. Liverpool to Manchester, the first intercity one, started in 1830, and it was a great success in transferring passengers and freight across these two cities. And so in the 1830s and early 1840s, there was a huge increase in the number of railways and railway companies. And people were putting money into these because they thought they were an easy way to make money. They thought this was a big, and some of the early ones did make a lot of money. And so everybody was throwing money at all these companies, and there were about 60 companies that started up, and they all went to the government, and they're running around trying to get these government acts that said they could build these railways. And it was a great competition, and the government at that time was quite laissez-faire. They didn't interfere. Companies grew which shouldn't have grown if they were properly investigated. And a lot of people, even people on modest incomes, were investing in these companies. Now, some of them, you could just put in 10% of the actual share price, and you could get the shares. And then the company could, at any time, call in for the extra money. Now, this was okay while the companies succeeded, but when they started to fail and they started to bring in, ask for the money from customers, then suddenly there was a run on the companies, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. And so this was the 1845 great railway mania, and then the collapse in the shares, and there's lots of, and I'll look at this through the eyes of Punch. Now, I've got a Punch magazine hit. This was a very political satire type of thing. And here we've got the, and they would talk about the political goings on of the day. And so you can see it's 1848. And there was some very strange, this is the Punch, it's one of the early ones of Punch. Great cartoonist. And we'll have a look at some of the things they were saying in 1845 about the railways. Let's have a look at the first one. Here you can see a railway, and this one's got all these shares. Lord Brougham's, that's how we say it, Railway Nightmare. He's got all these shares, and he thinks he's going to have a nightmare here. And we've got the little text here. We have received the following distressing communications from Lord Brougham. His lordship is evidently very bad, and it's always been our wish to make him better. But we must fear that it is too far gone to allow of much good being done for him. The following letter will, however, explain the condition of the learned sufferer. Dear Punch, understanding that you have a reputation for being able to curb the very worst evils, I write to ask you your advice under the following circumstances. I am subject to a species of nightmare in the shape of a very heavy oppression at my chest, as if a steam engine was cutting right across me and my whole body were intersected by various lines of railway. I hear all sorts of noises. Steam boilers appear to be bursting in my ears, valves seem exploding under my very nose, and the pistons work before my eyes with a force there is no accounting for. I make every exertion to release myself from the distressing burden, but I find it utterly impossible. By telling me what to do, you will greatly oblige yours faithfully, Brougham. I am sorry I have no advice that we can give him, his lordship, which is at all likely to take. Our opinion is that he ought to be kept very quiet, but this we know is impossible. So that's quite a dig at this bloke, so he's probably quite a mouthy person. And then we've got this one, railway races. Again, there's and again, it gives you an idea of what people were at that period when they were getting the railway mania going at. And here we have, as the railway is rapidly superseding the road, it is expected that the engine will soon annihilate the horse, or, to use a figure that would have suggested itself to the old wags, put the horses completely hors de combat. Instead of encouraging the breed of racers, the sporting world be employed in improving the building locomotives, and we shall hear of Braithwaite's lot being backed by Pancalerium Ironworks, favourite for the Oaks or the Derby. We shall be having thoroughbred engines winning by half a turn. Instead of by a neck, and the great patrons of the turf will abandon the sturdy horseflesh for the cultivation of a knowledge of iron. We have heard of high-mettled racers and of horses showing their mettle. But when the races are made of metal altogether, the sport will of course be beautiful. The task of training will necessarily devolve to those who have accustomed to railway trains, and when riding the race, the substitute for the whip and the spurs will be the scuttle full of coals and a poker. If the system of railroad racing should be adopted, Punch will probably go upon the turf with a splendid and stud of locomotives, and will be prepared to back his own lot against the field of any amount and for any distance. The following is a sort of account that might be given of our run for the first sweepstakes. The race is supposed to be between ourselves and one or two individuals who are a good deal addicted to political sporting. There's Punch on his page. We've got this one. After 2 or 3 false starts, the whole lot go fairly off, and Peel, who was then, I think, Prime Minister, went at a slapping pace on free trade, his too old boiler, but he was a good deal encumbered by the Conservative rack, who were fearfully tailing him till he went slap away and left them nowhere. Brougham now made all the running, but went very wide, and in going down the hill was lost sight of altogether. Punch now came up on his 4-year-old and went slap in amongst the lot, winning cleverly by several heads, to the delight of the assembled multitude. There you got Punch winning the race. Anti-humbug. There's all the people. There's the other ones coming up. Yeah. Let's have a look. There is, in here, another one on the railways. PQ on the railways. Politeness 101. And let's turn to 101. And this one tells about politeness amongst railway staff. So what was railway politeness in those days like? The classification adopted in the management of railways is not confined to the carriages, but the distinctions of first, second and third class are scrupulously observed in the degree of politeness shown by the servants of the company to the passengers. So in those days, nowadays we just have first and second class, but in those days we had first, second and third class. The old maxim that civility costs nothing seems to be utterly repudiated by railway directors, who calculate, no doubt, that politeness at all events takes time, and as time is money, the servants of the company are not justified in giving without an equivalent. Anyone who doubts the fact of the distinction to which we have alluded being drawn has only to present himself at different times as an applicant for the information at a railway terminus in the different characters of a first, a second, and a third class passenger. If he is going by first class, he will get speedy attention from the clerks in the office, bows and even smiles from the policeman on the platform, and perhaps a touch of the hat from the guard. The second class passenger will get bare civility, but rather more of the bare than the civility, from the officials who stamp and deliver the cheques, and who are very fond of trying to cheat them into the belief that they are quite on a par with the gentlemen in the public offices, whom the railway clerks chiefly resemble in an assumed nonchalance, which, however, the plain speaking of a passenger who will be attended to, and who may be a shareholder, is pretty sure to dissipate. A second-class passenger will get nothing more than a "Now, sir," from the policeman, and "Come, jump up," from the guard, while the third-class passenger will experience a poke in the chest from the former with his staff, by way of keeping him back till it is convenient to let him enter the carriage. In fact, there are short answers as well as short trains, and each class has a set of rules of politeness applied to it, which officers are bound to obey as scrupulously as they do to the railway signals. So there's quite a difference between the different types of classes. So here you got first class politeness, second class politeness, and then third class politeness. See, Punch was very good at putting all these characters. And then, because the third class, as we saw on that original picture, were open carriages like this one here, you were open to the elements. And so let's have a look at the third class traveller's petition. Pity the sorrows of a third class man, whose trembling limbs with snow are whitened o'er, who for his fare has paid you all he can. Cover him in and let him freeze no more. This dripping hat my ruthless pen bespeaks, so does the puddle reaching to my knees. Behold my pinched red nose, my shrivelled cheeks. You should not have such carriages as these. In vain I stamp to warm my aching feet. I only paddle in a pool of slush. My stiffened hands in vain I blow the beat, tears from my eyes congealing as they gush. Keen blows the wind, the sleet comes pelting down, and here I'm standing in open air. Long is my dreary journey up to town, that is alive if ever I get there. Oh, from the weather, when it snows and rains, you might as well at least defend the poor. It would not cost you much, with all your gains. Cover us in, and luck attend your store. So even in those days, you're actually not just in the open, but you're standing as well. So you might stand for quite a while in all weathers. And so I hope this gives you a feeling of what life was like in the 1840s as a railway passenger. Now, I've got a timetable of 1840s, which I'll show in my next clip. So if you're interested, please stick around for that one. And I'll show you the timetables, how long it took from one place to another. That might be of some interest to people. But I hope this was of interest to people. And maybe I'll do one on the Punch cartoons as well, because these were very good at taking the fun out of political figures and people of the day. Okay, I hope that was of interest to you. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.